Hi guys, still reading Stick Dog, and we are now in chapter 6. Chapter 6 of Stick Dog. But let's go back and see what happened in chapter 5. Now, I remember in chapter 5, they made it to the park, so Pizarro Park, and it said they came across warrior human attacks. Oh, so they were talking about how one of the peeps, who was it? I think it was Stripes. Yeah, Stripes went ahead above everyone, went around everyone, and went down the hill after the people that were grilling, the family that was grilling at the park. And he said that they had weapons. Do you remember what those weapons were? They weren't really weapons. They were tongs to flip the hamburgers. And he thought they were weapons. And then he was talking about the soccer ball. See, there they are. There's those tongs to flip the hamburgers. And the dogs were all scared of it. But Stick Dog said, guys, there's no reason to be scared. So they had to come up with a plan. So now they're in chapter 6, and it was called Karen is Missing. Karen is missing. So let's listen. I've got an idea, Mutt said. Great, said Stick Dog. What's your plan? There are 4 of them and 5 of us. Mutt began. So me, Stripes, Karen, and Poo Poo each choose a person. Mutt turned and pointed toward Stripes and Poo Poo with his nose. Then he swiveled his head to the left and right a few times. He asked, where's Karen? Now, Karen, of course, is a dachshund. The top of her head is only about 8 inches tall, and the top of her back is only about 5 inches off the ground. Stripes, Poo Poo, Mutt, and Stick Dog had lost Karen before. Once, when the lawnmower man at Picasso Park was on vacation, they had lost Karen in a patch of very thick, very tall grass. So there was no need to be alarmed. Yet. To avoid being overheard by the hamburger grilling family, Stick Dog whispered low and hard, Karen! Karen! Do you know what whispering low and hard means? It's the kind of whisper my mom uses when she discovers I'm chewing bubble yum bubble gum in the library. My favorite flavor. Original, even though original is not technically a flavor if you think about it. Karen didn't answer. She must be in the brush somewhere, said Stick Dog, his stomach rumbling loudly. Help me look around, please. Quietly. The 4 of them spread out and began using my mom's "You're so busted" chewing bubble yum original flavor bubblegum in the library whisper. Karen! Karen! Stripes searched through some cattail reeds. Mutt pawed through a bunch of leaves that the wind had blown into a pile. Poo Poo stood on his hind legs and looked up into the top branches of a sycamore tree. Stick Dog called them back together. Anything? They all shook their heads. Karen! This is awful, moaned Mutt. What could have happened to her? She was here just a minute ago, said Poo Poo. I'm really going to miss her, said Stripes. I'm going to miss watching her chase her tail and not catch it. I'll miss watching her try to jump high off the ground even though her legs can only push her about 2 inches in the air. She really was entertaining, you know. What a loss. Look, it can only jump 2 inches. See that roller? 1, 2. And that tail, said Poo Poo, dropping his head and staring at the ground. Whenever she was happy, that tail would really get wagging. I remember once I was too close to her, and when she found half a potato chip by her favorite garbage can at Picasso Park, Stick Dog turned to look toward Karen's favorite garbage can. She loved potato chips, Mutt added. I know she did, continued Poo Poo, nodding his head in memory. I was right next to her when she found that chip. Her favorite chip finding place had paid off again. Remember how she was always went there whenever we went to the park? Their garbage can next to the basketball court? Well, she found a chip that time, and her tail started swishing like crazy and whacked me 3 times right across the face. Smack, smack, smack. Good old Karen. I'll really miss her dangerous, tail-wagging days. Mutt nodded his head. It's a terrible tragedy, all right, sighed Mutt. He stared up at a lone gray cloud in the sky as it drifted in front of the sun. I think maybe when we get those juicy, warm hamburgers from the humans, we should leave one in her memory at Karen's favorite location. Where's that? Asked Stick Dog. It's where Poo Poo said Karen's favorite garbage can, said Mutt. She went there every time we went to the park. Don't you remember? It was always the first place she sprinted off to whenever we got near the place. Gee, Stick Dog, I can't believe you don't remember it. As if the memory of Karen is already slipping away from you. Stick Dog looked across the park again. Right, I remember now, he said, smiling to himself. Mutt blinked quickly a couple of times. I just think a hamburger would be a good memorial to her. There was complete silence for several moments. It was difficult to tell what Stripes and Poo Poo were thinking about Mutt's idea. Let me get this straight, Poo Poo finally said in a low, shaky voice. You think we should go to all this trouble, even risk getting caught, to get those hamburgers, and then leave one for Karen as a memorial? In memory of Karen. That's right, said Mutt. The sun had begun to emerge from the other side of that single dark cloud in the sky, as a way to honor and remember her. Said Poo Poo. He stopped and took a deep breath. It's a nice idea and all, but I'm not risking my life and 4 limbs to get a hamburger that we're not even going to eat. Forget it. With my luck, some tail-shaking, chattering squirrel would find it and eat it. I miss Karen and all, but let's try to stay serious here. You don't think we should do something to honor Karen? Mutt asked, beginning to sound offended. Not with hamburgers, said Poo Poo. They're too precious. Can't we all come here and howl on her birthday or something? Oh! Oh! Stick Dog was willing to let this conversation go on, but his stomach was not. It was growling even louder than before, and as you can probably guess, Stick Dog had found Karen by this time. She was, in fact, right in the spot they were describing, at the garbage can next to the basketball court. Where's her favorite garbage can again, Mutt? Stick Dog asked. It's right over there, he began, finally looking away from the sky. The dark gray cloud had moved on, bringing a renewed brightness and warmth to the day. Mutt turned to point to his muzzle, saying, The garbage can next to the basket. Mutt stopped talking suddenly, and his tail started swishing faster and faster. His eyes opened wide. I found her! Where? Poo Poo and Stripes yelled simultaneously. There! Mutt screamed. It was difficult to tell where he was pointing, though. He was leaping up and down, shaking with excitement. Right where we were going to make the memorial for her. Stripes and Poo Poo jerked their heads around to look. Sure enough, there was Karen. They all began hopping up and down in place, with their tails wagging like mad and whipping into one another. Stick Dog was, of course, happy to find Karen, too, but he had known for a little while where she was and that she was safe. Karen was digging around in some loose trash that had blown out of the garbage can. That's why she loved this particular one. It filled up quickly because a lot of small humans played on the basketball court. There's the trash. And a lot of older, larger humans watched them eating snacks as they did. Okay, so Karen wasn't really lost, right? Oh my gosh, she was just in her favorite spot by the garbage can trying to find something to eat. The trash can, Karen knew, was also far away from the dumpster, and then that meant that the big humans who rode the giant blue truck and collected garbage on Thursday mornings often didn't fetch this can, especially if it was raining, and Karen knew that this very full garbage can often overflowed. She knew a brisk wind would pick up a loose potato chip bag and blow it off the top, leaving tasty, salty morsels inside for her to find with her skinny, perfectly proportioned dachshund nuzzle. And that's just what had happened, and just what she had found. Karen had a small, bright orange bag covering her nose, and she was trying to return to her 4 friends behind the honeysuckle bush. Here she comes, yelled Poo Poo. That's her, all right, screamed Stripes. Mutt laughed and shook his head. Good old Karen. Now, a dachshund running across a field with a bag on its head is quite a sight to see. It also takes a long time to see it. Dachshunds are not really that fast. Sure, they can move along pretty well, but 3-inch legs can only cover so much ground, no matter how fast they're churning. And when a dachshund has her head in a potato chip bag, that tends to slow things down considerably. Another problem? The bag was large enough to ride up over Karen's eyes as well, so the combination of short legs, a bag on her head, and a lack of vision made for a lengthy, zigzaggy trip to the other 4 dogs behind the honeysuckle bush. But at last she reached them, dropped the bag, picked it up at the bottom, and poured out the contents. I love that garbage can. Look at all these, she exclaimed. I brought them back to share, as an appetizer before our hamburgers. Appetizers are really important. I learned that when I lived in the back of that restaurant for a while. The chef was always saying a fine appetizer is the only way to start a fine meal. Mound of chips. lived in the back of a restaurant?" asked Stripes. "What kind of restaurant was it?" "It was a French-Asian fusion. Very trendy." "You must have gotten great scraps." Karen nodded her head. "Boy, did I. The French really know their sauces." "Why in the world did you leave?" "Well, they found out I was there after a couple of weeks, Karen smiled. "It was good eating for a while, though. Anyway, that's where I learned about appetizers. I think chips make a great prequel to a big meal like hamburgers. That's why I went to my garbage can. There's almost always something to eat there." The dogs all turned their attention back to the appetizer Karen had provided. There was a small mound of chips, perhaps 10 in all, and plenty of crumbs. "We're really glad you're back," said Stripes, eating a potato chip. "Yeah," Poo Poo added, leaning down to sniff the small pile of chips. "We thought we'd lost you." Mutt came closer to the chips, too, and Poo Poo wanted to eat your memorial hamburger. Karen tilted her head and turned to Stick Dog for an explanation. This is what usually happened whenever it was hard for one of them to figure something out. "Never mind," he said. "Tell us about these chips. They look different than usual." Karen wagged her tail. "That's because they're not your usual run-of-the-mill potato chips. They have red and gold powdery stuff on them," Stripes said. She had dropped down to eye the small pile of chips closely. "I don't know about these. They don't smell like regular potato chips to me." Poo Poo was braver. He picked up one of the small stray crumbs. He nibbled it at the very front of his mouth, rolled it a little bit back and forth on his tongue, and then swallowed very slowly and deliberately, closing his eyes as the tiny morsel went down his throat. Stick Dog and the others watched this with great interest. They wanted to know if this new kind of potato chip was any good. They also found this slow, deliberate eating style very strange. At last, Poo Poo opened his eyes with great sophistication and authority. He declared, "I must say, this powdery combination of spice and flavor is both enchanting and invigorating." He closed his eyes and licked his lips. Then he nodded his head, opened his eyes, looked slightly above the other dogs, and stated, "It achieves a delicate balance of taste and texture. I get hints of salt and pepper, yes, but also brown sugar, garlic, and tomato. These flavors work in perfect conjunction with the crunchy satisfaction of a good, crisp bite." Karen, Mutt, Stripes, and Stick Dog stared at Poo Poo. After a moment, he dropped his gaze to look at them. "What?" he asked. "I happen to have a very refined taste." "I have to admit, Poo Poo," said Stick Dog, "there's a very detailed description of those flavors. I can almost taste them myself. You really do have a talent for this kind of thing." Yes, I do," said Poo Poo with a magnificent air of authority. "Once, a very long time ago, I was able to discern the difference between kibble and bits." They ate 2 potato chips and several crumbs each, relishing this new-fangled flavor as long as they could. That was fantastic malicious," Stripes said to Karen. "Thanks for providing that appetizer." The other dogs expressed their gratitude to Karen as well. They licked their lips and the fur around their mouths, attempting to get every tiny morsel of flavor. "Stick Dog," asked Mutt, "how come I'm even hungrier than before? It doesn't make sense. After eating those chips, shouldn't I be more full? But my stomach feels more empty. That seems unfair." "This is completely a real feeling, by the way. You can test it at home. Wait for some time when you're super hungry. Then take 1 or 2 bites of something. Then wait a minute and don't eat anything else. You'll often find that you've become super duper extra hungry. I don't know why that is. I'm not a stomach doctor or anything. Kind of weird." "I don't know why that happens," answered Stick Dog. "He was even hungrier than before, too. And I agree, it is completely unfair. It makes it even more vital for us to formulate a strategy and get those hamburgers." All the dogs nodded in agreement. "Yeah." "Mutt, you were about to tell us your plan," Stick Dog said, turning to him with a renewed sense of urgency in his voice. "What is it?" Okay, and that's the end of our chapter. And the next chapter, chapter 7, bite, drive, dive, and fly. Wait a minute, wait. Bite, drive, dive, and fly. Interesting. I wonder what that is. What kind of a plan is that? Okay, guys, we are done with that chapter. And remember, the setting is still the same. They're still at the park. So they're still at the park. The only new setting they talked about was this garbage can that Karen loves because there's always garbage switch around and she can get some extra food. And she provided some cool potato chips for everyone to try. Okay, so if we go back to the events in this chapter, there were no new characters. They thought Karen was missing, but really Karen just went to her new spot. So they thought she was missing. They were all sad. They were coming up with a memorial plan for her. And then they found Karen, and Karen had some chips. So they all got to eat some chips, but then they said they were still hungry. So they still had to think more about those hamburgers and coming up with a plan to get those burgers. All right, guys, that's the end of chapter 6.